we're going to look at the Old Norwegian or twisted German cast on. This is a longtail cast on, and in order to estimate your yarn, I generally recommend using about 3.5 to 4 times the length that you'll need. So I'm just doing a small circumference here. I don't have a lot to lose if I end up having to rip it out and do it again, but if you're doing a large circumference, you might want to take a little extra care in estimating how much yarn you need so you don't get to your 300 stitches you need to cast on and find out you didn't leave enough. Here, as I said, I'm doing a small circumference cuff. So to show you, I'm going to overestimate my length around my cuff 1 time. I'm then going to take that length of yarn and I'm going to do 3.5 times. So 1, 2, 3.5. We will see how close that gets us at the end and how well we estimated. For the sake of demonstrating, I am going to use a slip knot. If you are used to doing your longtail cast-ons without a slip knot, you can by all means use that same technique. For people who are trying this for the first time, in order to just keep things simple, I'm going to show with a slip knot. So much like the longtail cast-on, your slip knot is on your needle. For me, that means my tail end is toward me and my working yarn attached to the ball is in the back. I do know some people do it differently, and however you're used to doing it for the longtail is up to you. Now, like the longtail cast on, you're going to put your hands first in the slingshot position. If you don't know what that means, it means with your 2 yarns here, you are going to take your fingers in this V shape to the side. They are going to dive underneath these 2 yarns and pull them back. This is your slingshot position. Now I tension the yarns with my 3 fingers here, but again, however you do that, it is the same hand position. So underneath to slingshot with tensioning. Now for the Old Norwegian or twisted German cast on, I am going to take my needle. The tip is going to go under both of these strands of yarn on my thumb. When you do the long tail, you're going underneath just the one. So here, I'm bringing the needle toward me and underneath both strands of yarn. I then need to take this needle tip and dive back down into this hole that is right in front of my thumb made with the 2 yarns. So tip of the needle down into that hole. Now bringing the needle toward me, I am going to come up and the yarn coming off my index finger that is closest to me, just like the longtail cast on, I'm going to grab it from above and I am going to bring it back down through this hole. Now watch how I do this at first. I rotate that hole open by moving my thumb a little bit away from me so that there is a bigger hole to come through and release it off of my thumb. That part is just like the longtail cast on. I'm going to show you a variation in a moment to clarify some questions people have when they watch different tutorials. So again, now I am right back in position. I didn't have to do anything differently here. I am going underneath both strands on my thumb. The tip of my needle is coming down through the hole in front of my thumb. I am rotating my hand around, grabbing the index finger yarn closest to me, opening up that hole and coming through. Let me do that in slightly more real time, but slowed down, just not so slow that it doesn't look natural. So underneath both strands in the hole, rotate around, grab it, back through the hole, release. Underneath both, through the hole, grab the one on your index finger, bring it back down that hole and release. There is a little bit of wrist motion there that you see going back and forth. Now that's how I do this cast on. There are other videos that are going to show something that looks a little bit trickier, but it is ultimately exactly the same thing. And I want to take a moment to show you what that looks like and clear up any confusion that both of these methods are accurate. They're both giving you the same thing, but they look a little bit differently when you're watching tutorials. What you will sometimes see is someone do the same first couple of steps. Underneath both strands of yarn, through the hole, grab the index finger yarn, but what you're going to see is them telling you you need to go through this little hole that makes the X between your needle and there, okay? So they're gonna tell you to come through here. See that? And it looks like there's hole number 1 and hole number 2, and release. So let's look at that again. Underneath both strands of yarn, through the hole on your thumb, picking up at your index finger, and then doing this little manipulation that personally is not comfortable for my hands to come through this hole. And you might be saying, well, but Erica, how are those two things the same? Well, let's watch. If I go underneath both strands of yarn and back through the hole on my thumb, I pick up that index finger. Now you're telling me this hole and this hole aren't the same. Well, you'd be correct if I was trying to go over this X, but watch how I do it. I'm opening up that hole. So do you see that when I move my thumb away from me, those two holes are actually one and the same when I do that. Coming back through this little hole here is the same thing as coming back through this hole if I'm opening it up as I go. So really, we all know that in knitting, there is more than one way to accomplish the same thing. Sometimes it involves extra steps and sometimes it doesn't. It's about what you're having happen for the end result. And depending on how you hold your yarn and the comfortable movement of your hands, you can choose the one that makes the most sense for you. So I like under both, through the hole, grab the yarn and open it up. You might prefer under both, through the hole, grab the yarn, and uncomfortable for me, but maybe great for you, get it through the hole closest to you. Either way, as you can see, I did both here, and I know this is a dark yarn, but it was good to show against the table. Either way, I'm getting the exact same result at the bottom. It's possible if I did one all one way, one all the other way, and I looked, I might have a slightly different tension, but that's for you to see and decide. The Old Norwegian or German twisted cast on is meant to give you a cast on with a little bit more stretchiness to it than a long tail, a standard long tail. And so you can experiment and see what works for you. Thanks for watching and happy knitting.